Hi there, it's Ryan G. Wright with DoHardMoney.com. And the question of the day is, can I invest in rural areas? And the answer is you can, it just might not be very successful. So when we consider a rural area, this is where the population's really small. This is where you're gonna have issues with getting loans on the other side of it. Getting different types of loans is gonna be more difficult. The biggest issue that you have when you're dealing with a rural area is the number of buyers. Your buyer pool is just so small that there just aren't enough buyers for you to sell the property. So you're gonna have issues with time on market. What time on market is when you put the property on the market, how long is it gonna take you before that property actually sells? And when you're dealing with a smaller population and there's only a few hundred transactions that happen in an entire year, it may take you forever before you actually sell the property because there's just not enough buyers that are interested in buying that property when you put the property for sale. So this can run into a trouble for you in trying to sell the property. The other problems you're going to run into is getting properties fixed up. It can take you forever to find contractors. And even if you do find a contractor, if that contractor quits, you might have a very hard time getting contractors to come back or finding a new contractor. Now, a mistake a lot of people make in rural areas is they think, I'll get a contractor from another area to drive up there and make a long drive. Sometimes this works, but most of the time we found those contractors aren't excited about making that drive, and they may do it for a day or two, but then they'll bomb out on you. And then you're gonna find yourself in a very difficult situation. So in the end, if you're in a rural area, I think your best bet in most cases, and there's always exceptions to every rule, but I think your best bet is to actually go to an area that's not rural. So make the drive. Rather than asking contractors and buyers to make the drive to you, you make the drive to them. It's a lot easier to invest in an area even if you have to make that drive. The other thing you can think about doing is investing out of state or out of your county, where you actually do your marketing materials and you actually take the phone calls and you try and close things over the phone. The other thing you can look at doing is actually do the marketing and do wholesaling. If you don't want to deal with the rehab and the contractors and those things, you can actually do wholesaling. And that's one thing if you're in a rural area and you want to invest in that area, I would suggest you start by wholesaling a property, making a buyer's list. If you haven't checked out Investor's Edge, you can actually make a cash buyer's list and see how many cash buyers are actually in that area. If you find there's not very many cash buyers, you probably need to rethink this. You probably need to look at investing in another area. You may want to think at making sure you find another area that's big enough population or driving to another area so you can make sure that you've got enough investment opportunities. You need to make sure there's a big enough pool of people that want to buy houses. You've got to make sure there's a big enough pool of contractors that can do the work. You've got to make sure there's a big enough pool of buyers so that the house will sell in a timely manner. And you've got to make sure that there's a big enough pool of lenders that will be willing to lend on this property once the work is actually done. And you've got to make sure it's not so rural that you're going to have problems with insurance and other things that can come up. I'll give you a quick rule of thumb. If you're dealing with septic tanks, if you're dealing with propane tanks, you're probably dealing with a more rural or recreational type area. That's a telltale sign you're probably going to have some difficulties. Now, if your strategy is a modular home, or your strategy is flipping land, or your strategy is recreational, those types of things, that could be different. But for your traditional fix and flip, for your traditional rental, for the majority of investings that we're talking about, you're probably better off finding a neighborhood where not dealing with rural. I hope this is helpful. Check us out over at DoHardMoney.com for other helpful tips and tricks. Check out our YouTube channel at DoHardMoney.com. Please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and make it a very profitable day.